Video games are a very big part of society. They keep us entertained through various aspects of mechanics. And with every video game that's made, there's also a specific genre that's catered to a specific audience. And one of my favorite genres in particular just so happens to be the one that also makes the most noise. It should be fairly obvious to know by now that guns and video games go very much hand in hand with each other. And not to mention that more than likely, if you've ever played a first-person shooter, then you know what it's like to get that intensified feeling of being able to one-shot someone in the head and feeling like an absolute marksman. Or, even better, you get that satisfied feeling of being able to run up in one-man army an entire group like But before any of this was even possible, we had to imagine doing this in the current format that we lived in. Which brings me up to my next point. Never ever forget the age of 2D platformers. Seriously ask yourself, why does Capcom keep making Mega Man games? Mega Man 11 isn't necessarily needed, but because of the certain fan base that it has, 2D platformers will always have their place in this world. And more than likely, you probably have a good memory of one. But since then, a lot of differences happen in terms of how we see and actually play games because of the initial jump from 2D to 3D, which essentially only gave us nothing but invisible walls and floor glitches, which was all done for the simple sake of trying to give us a more rich and diverse world to play in. But what if you were to actually take that back from the player and actually give them something different to enjoy? Something that isn't initially meant to steal the eyes of those hardcore graphic users out there, but instead to test the might of the players who are overall more versatile in their gaming ability. Joymasher Studios basically looked at this attempt and said, fine, but you better not drop my beer while I'm doing this. And then out came Blazing Chrome.
Blazing Chrome.
Blazing Chrome, a series of two words put together that literally sounds like what happens when you're shooting a 500 round gun and the tip of it starts to glow red, but you don't actually care, you hit it with the active reload, and then you continue to shoot 500 more rounds, which is essentially what this game is trying to drive at. It's a gaming title that tells you what it is that you're about to do before you jump into complete mayhem. A game that is so intensively good that even I, a low-class E-tier YouTuber with literally less than 6 subscribers, has decided to make a video in commemoration of what a side-scrolling 2D platformer game has the capabilities of becoming, or to be killed by. From the very first animation at the start screen, it initially gives you a raw nostalgic look of an old TV screen from the 90s. Which I have to honestly say makes me really miss the days of plugging in the red, yellow, and white cords into the TV, putting it on channel 3, and then blowing the cartridge, just for good luck. The story takes place in a far and distant future and immediately paints a picture of a world that's darker than the DC Comics storyline. There are 2 main characters that you can choose from, as well as unlockable characters that you can play with. And more than likely, these guys are the only ones who are ever going to bring hope to changing whatever this world is back to what it once was. Their plan is a very simple plan, which basically involves killing and shooting anything that isn't either one of them. And that would seem like a very simple plan, except if it weren't for the fact that they're going up against a giant army of asynchronous AI robots and androids armed with crazy weaponry of their own. This game doesn't have any puzzles involved, and it doesn't require you to stray away from the original thought process that dives you into the game from the very beginning. And that basically means that you don't have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out something unnecessarily. The game itself does not have a tutorial, and the difficulty in this game is kinda similar to Contra. And what that means is that it's very forgiving, but in a way it's very non-forgiving, due to the number of lives that you have and the fact that you actually take one-hit shots from enemies. When the option for difficulty, however, is changed to the highest hardcore setting, Maverick and Doyle, that's these two, immediately go from being the wrecking crew of destruction to Dorothy and the Tin Man from Wizard of Oz, because that is literally how weak they are compared to the rest of the things on the road ahead of them. The hardcore mode has no saves and the number of lives that you get are reduced from 7 down to only 3. Which, to be honest, kinda sounds like how the game developers want you to play from the start, but since every gamer is different in terms of skill, the alternate play settings are still available to you. Initially, this game focuses on dodging and shooting your enemies before they have a chance to even attack you, and also, playing the game without an extra player at your side makes it a little bit more difficult to squeeze in that extra damage during certain moments when possible. If you get this game, then you should probably know that this has no online co-op. So what that means is that you are either going to play on the couch next to a friend, or you're going to have to run in solo and figure out if you can kind of handle the game on your own. Which, to be fair, should be pretty fun considering that you can play the game on a basic difficulty and there's a lot of stuff that's blowing up around you. The AI in this game, as you would imagine it, would be from any older classic game, with the exception of it being able to do a few obvious different movements and attacks that wouldn't have been possible to do in the early days of gaming. Certain enemies have attack patterns, while at the same time some seem to be very random with their actions. The overall health of each enemy doesn't seem to make very much of a difference compared to the others, until you take in obvious factors like size into accountability for the amount of damage that you need to destroy them. Not only that, but some enemies do not skip a beat on running in your direction even if they're off screen, and because of this, there's a constant flow of gameplay that makes you feel like they are literally out for your life. Enemies don't take up unnecessary space in the screen, nor do they sit around and just linger in certain areas even though they can clearly see you. The bosses in this game have incredible intros for themselves, and for the most part, each one that you encounter kinda has its own role in how it's supposed to make you think and react to them. And even though at times you may feel like you're a god wreaking havoc on these machines, very often you'll find yourself in moments where you know that going complete Rambo isn't always the best option. So you may be honestly asking yourself whether or not this game is for you in terms of its overall fun. And to basically put it to you like this in perspective, if you're a solo campaign type of guy, then immediately this should be an overall challenge for you. However, if you enjoy playing co-op, then it immediately breaks that level of tension that happens in the mid-game, and it puts you more into a focus of using strats to defeat the boss and advance further into the map. Not to mention, there are a ton of different levels, all of which use their own theme, and you can use different modes of transportation in order to break the constant cycle of always having to run and gun with everything. And to be honest, this game moves at a different pace that isn't too discouraging for newer players of this type of genre, and at the same time there's always enough action on screen during mid-play that constantly keeps you engaged and moving around as you dodge projectiles. And on top of that, there's a lot of versatility on how it is that you can actually progress through the game. So for example, you can use guns in this game, but you're not limited to using just guns, as certain characters use melee weapons instead that are actually able to project blades of energy. Kinda similar to Not only that, but you can actually have offensive and defensive power-ups that help aid you further along the way. One of which is actually a machine turret that follows you along and shoots alongside with you, along with a shield that helps you basically prevent damage from those almost impossible situations. The gameplay itself and the movement is very smooth, and it's what you would kinda expect from this game considering that it's based on a classic Nintendo series and it's been in development for the past 2 years. If I had to rate this game, I wouldn't use a bunch of numbers and decimal points because I feel like that breaks the overall quality of the game and it ruins the experience for newer players. Not only that, but it sets a bar of comparison to the other games on the Steam marketplace, and it can kinda lead to a very bad misrepresentation of what Joymasher Studios is fully capable of. However, it's just like I said in the beginning of this video. This game is literally so good that even I, a low-level E-ranked YouTuber, decided to take the time to make a video about it because this game is obviously worth my time and my money.